The extension cord snaked across the sidewalk like a bright orange viper, disappearing beneath the pristine white garage door of 47 Oakwood Lane. Eleanor Morgan stood at her kitchen window, coffee mug clutched in white-knuckled fingers, watching as Karen Westfield, giveaway president and self-appointed neighborhood vigilante, unplugged her Tesla from the outlet on the side of Mark Peterson's house. It was 5:45 a.m. Karen had been pulling this stunt for weeks now, always before dawn, always when she thought no one was watching. Eleanor's phone vibrated. A text from Mark. "She's at it again, isn't she?" "Yep, just unplugged. You should see your electric bill this month." Karen Westfield embodied everything Eleanor despised about Sunnyside Estates. The woman wore her HOA presidency like a crown, wielding the community rulebook like a scepter. Her salt and pepper bob was always immaculately styled, her casual athleisure somehow looking tailored, and her smile contained all the warmth of a parking ticket. Through the window, Eleanor watched Karen coil up the extension cord with practiced efficiency, tucking it into her Tesla's front before sliding into the driver's seat. The electric car hummed to life and glided silently away, freshly charged with stolen electricity. Mark Peterson was a 68-year-old widower who wouldn't notice the gradual increase in his electric bill, precisely why Karen had chosen his exterior outlet. His house sat at the perfect angle from her own, just 2 doors down and partially obscured by a row of meticulously trimmed hedges that Karen herself had insisted everyone plant last spring. According to the bylaws, Section 4.7, Uniform Landscaping maintains property values. Karen had announced the HOA meeting, somehow making it sound both reasonable and vaguely threatening. Eleanor's phone buzzed again, this time a neighborhood-wide notification. Reminder: non-regulation mailbox designs must be corrected by Friday or fines will be assessed. Management. Management? Eleanor snorted. That was Karen speak for, "I noticed something I don't like, and now I'm going to make it everyone's problem." 3 months ago, Eleanor had been cited for having wind chimes that exceeded the acceptable noise threshold. The month before that, it was her garbage bins being visible from the street for more than 24 hours after collection. Each violation came with a form letter, a highlighted bylaw, and Karen's signature at the bottom, penned in the kind of flowing cursive that somehow managed to look smug. Eleanor set down her coffee cup and picked up her phone again. She opened the community Facebook group and saw the discussion already brewing. Anyone else get the mailbox notice? 27 comments already. The thing that truly infuriated Eleanor wasn't just Karen's selective enforcement of rules, it was her flagrant disregard for those same rules when they inconvenienced her. Like the fact that Section 8.3 clearly prohibited unauthorized use of community or private utilities. Eleanor opened her desk drawer and pulled out her notebook. Inside was a growing list titled Karen's Violations, with dates, times, and photos. Next to it lay a circuit diagram she downloaded last night. As an electrical engineer, Eleanor knew exactly how to address Karen's illicit charging setup. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice. And if Karen's precious Tesla happened to suffer a catastrophic electrical failure in the process, well, that was just karma drawing interest on a long overdue debt. That evening, Eleanor attended the monthly HOA meeting in the Sunnyside Estates Community Center. The room buzzed with the particular energy of suburban discontent. Homeowners clustered in corners, whispering about property line disputes and unapproved fence heights. Karen stood at the front, shuffling papers with military precision, a PowerPoint presentation queued up behind her with the words Community Standards Excellence emblazoned across the top. "Before we begin, I'd like to address the growing problem of covenant violations," Karen announced, her voice carrying that unique blend of concern and condescension that made Eleanor's molars grind together. "Last month alone, we issued 27 citations. People, that's nearly 1 per day." Eleanor watched as Karen clicked through slides showing violations. Photos of a child's basketball hoop left out overnight, a garden gnome that exceeded the maximum allowable lawn ornament height, and a garage door painted sunset amber instead of the approved desert sand. "Remember, these rules exist to protect all our property values," Karen continued, pausing to make deliberate eye contact with several homeowners. When her gaze fell on Eleanor, her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Any questions before we move to new business?" Karen asked, her tone suggesting questions were technically allowed but not encouraged. Eleanor raised her hand. Karen's eyes narrowed slightly before she nodded. "Yes, Eleanor. I was reviewing the bylaws and noticed Section 8.3 about unauthorized utility usage. Has the board considered installing security cameras near community outlets? I've heard reports of people stealing electricity." Eleanor kept her voice neutral, innocent. Karen's smile didn't waver, but her knuckles whitened around her laser pointer. "The board hasn't received any formal complaints about utility theft. If you'd like to submit one, there's a form on the website. I'll be sure to do that, Eleanor replied sweetly. After the meeting, Eleanor drove to the hardware store. She picked up a weatherproof junction box, heavy-duty wire, and various electrical components. The clerk raised an eyebrow at her selections. Working on something interesting, he asked as he rang up the items. Just a little home project, Eleanor replied, keeping her tone casual. Installing some outdoor outlets. Back home, Eleanor spread the components across her workbench. A circuit she designed was elegant in its simplicity. It would allow normal current flow for typical devices but would trigger a surge protector to fail when faced with the specific charging pattern of an electric vehicle. The best part? It would be completely untraceable, looking like just another power surge to anyone investigating afterward. The next morning, Eleanor woke earlier than usual. At 4:30 a.m., she slipped out of her house wearing dark clothes and carrying her toolbox. Mark had given her permission to fix his external outlet. He was tired of the unexplained increases in his electric bill. Working quickly in the dim pre-dawn light, Eleanor removed the outlet cover and installed her modified circuit. She replaced the cover, making sure everything looked untouched. Then she retreated to her house and waited. At 5:42 a.m., Karen's Tesla glided silently into view. Through her binoculars, Eleanor watched as Karen, dressed in designer athleisure wear, retrieved her extension cord from the frunk and plugged one end into Mark's outlet. The woman then connected the other end to her Tesla's charging port before doing a quick scan of the neighborhood and speed-walking back to her house. Eleanor held her breath. For several minutes, nothing happened. The Tesla's charging light glowed steadily, indicating a normal charging cycle. Eleanor frowned. Had her modifications failed? Then, precisely as designed, the circuit detected the sustained high current draw of the car charger. The surge protector within Eleanor's device faltered exactly as planned. Through her binoculars, Eleanor saw the moment the Tesla's display flashed red. A warning symbol appeared, followed by what looked like an error code. Karen's front door opened less than a minute later. Karen burst from her front door, still in her silk bathrobe, slippers slapping against the pavement as she rushed toward her Tesla. Eleanor ducked behind her curtain, heart pounding, a mixture of adrenaline and vindication coursing through her veins. Through a narrow gap in the fabric, she watched as Karen yanked the charging cable from her car, her face twisted in panic. The Tesla's sleek touchscreen display was now completely black. Karen jabbed frantically at it, then pulled out her phone and began furiously tapping. Probably looking up the error code, Eleanor thought. Good luck with that. Eleanor had designed the circuit modification to mimic a random power surge, something that happened often enough in their area to be plausible, but rare enough to be unfortunate. The damage would appear to be an unlucky coincidence, not sabotage, and certainly not retribution for months of petty tyranny and electrical theft. Karen was now pacing beside her car, phone pressed to her ear, gesticulating wildly with her free hand. Eleanor imagined her demanding an emergency service appointment, insisting that she was a VIP customer, that her situation was uniquely urgent. Standard Karen protocol. A movement across the street caught Eleanor's attention. Mark Peterson had emerged onto his porch in a faded bathrobe, watching the scene unfold with undisguised interest. When he caught Eleanor's eye through her window, he raised his coffee mug in a subtle toast. Eleanor smiled and retreated deeper into her house. By 7:30 a.m., a Tesla service van had arrived. The technician, a young woman with a tool belt and tablet, examined the car while Karen hovered nearby, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Eleanor couldn't hear their conversation, but Karen's body language told the story, patience, then disbelief and outrage. At 9:15 a.m., Eleanor's doorbell rang. She took a deep breath, composed her face into an expression of mild curiosity, and opened the door. Karen stood on her porch, perfectly put together now in a beige pantsuit, not a hair out of place. Only the tightness around her eyes betrayed her distress. "Good morning, Eleanor," Karen said, her voice clipped. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all," Eleanor replied pleasantly. "What can I do for you?" "There's been an incident with my car this morning. The Tesla technician says it might have been caused by a power surge." Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. "I recall you mentioning something about electrical issues at the meeting last night." Eleanor maintained her neutral expression. "Oh, that's unfortunate about your car." "Yes, I've been concerned about electrical safety in the neighborhood for some time now, especially people using outlets they shouldn't be using." Karen's smile tightened. The technician suggested it might have happened while the car was charging. "Were you charging it at home?" Eleanor asked innocently. A beat of silence stretched between them. Karen's eyes flicked briefly to Mark's house, then back to Eleanor. "Of course," Karen said smoothly, "but apparently there was a power fluctuation in the area. I'm going door to door to see if anyone else experienced electrical issues this morning." "How conscientious of you," Eleanor said. "As HOA president, you really do go above and beyond." Karen smiled and reached her eyes. It's important to be thorough. The repair estimate is over $12,000. The battery management system was completely fried. Eleanor allowed her eyes to widen in appropriate shock. That's terrible. I hope it's covered by warranty. Unfortunately, the technician says it might not be. Something about improper charging practices. Karen's gaze was piercing now. You wouldn't happen to know anything about electrical systems, would you, Eleanor? I'm an electrical engineer, Eleanor replied calmly. It's literally my job to know about electrical systems. Another silence, heavier this time, behind Karen. Eleanor could see Mark watching from his porch, pretending to water his plants. Well, Karen finally said, if you notice anything unusual about the neighborhood's power, I'd appreciate you letting me know. As soon as possible. I'll be sure to report any violations I observe, Eleanor promised. After all, that's what good neighbors do, right? Follow the rules. After Karen left, Eleanor spent the morning watching the neighborhood through her kitchen window. Karen moved from house to house, her posture growing increasingly rigid with each doorstep conversation. No one else had experienced electrical issues exactly as Eleanor had planned. The modified circuit had been designed to trigger only under the specific conditions of an electric vehicle charging. Around noon, Eleanor's phone lit up with a neighborhood-wide email. Urgent safety, vigilante, potential electrical grid instability. The message, signed by Karen as HOA president, warned of possible power surges and advised residents to unplug sensitive electronics. It ended with a reminder that tampering with electrical systems violates City Code 15.7 and HOA Bylaws Section 9.2. Eleanor smiled. Karen was covering her tracks, establishing a neighborhood-wide issue to explain her car's failure. Clever, but unnecessary. No one would think to investigate what was clearly just bad luck. Later that afternoon, Eleanor was pruning roses in her front garden when Mark ambled over, a fishing hat shading his weathered face. Beautiful day, he commented, leaning on her fence. Though I hear some folks are having electrical troubles. Eleanor snipped a dead bloom. So I've heard. Fortunately, my surge protectors seem to be doing their job. Mine too, Mark said, his eyes twinkling. Though the strangest thing, I checked my exterior outlet this morning and someone's replaced the cover. Looks brand new. Eleanor kept her expression neutral. Really? How odd. Indeed. Mark glanced toward Karen's house, where the Tesla was now gone, presumably towed to his service center. I also got the most interesting visit from our esteemed HOA president. Seemed very concerned about my electrical usage. Even offered to review my bills for irregularities. How thoughtful of her, Eleanor murmured. I thought so. I showed her my bills for the last 6 months. Pointed out the mysterious spike that started in June. Mark scratched his chin thoughtfully. She suggested it might be my old refrigerator. I suggested it might be something else entirely. Eleanor bit back a smile. And how did she take that suggestion? About as well as a cat takes to water. Mark chuckled. Reminded me about some violation with my bird bath being 2 inches too tall. Said she'd have to issue a formal warning. Of course she did, Eleanor sighed. Small price to pay, Mark winked. Anyway, thought you might want to know that the power company technician is coming tomorrow. Karen insisted they check the neighborhood's grid stability. Eleanor felt a flicker of unease. I see. Don't worry, Mark said quietly. That outlet's already back to normal. Checked it myself. Nothing to find. As if on cue, a text notification appeared on Eleanor's phone. It was from Diane Miller, who lived across from Karen. Kay is on the warpath. Called emergency HOA board meeting for tonight, claiming security concerns. Eleanor thanked Mark and retreated inside, her mind racing. An emergency meeting meant Karen was escalating. The question was, how far would she go? The answer came 3 hours later. Eleanor arrived at the community center to find nearly every Sunnyside Estates resident present. Karen's urgent summons had worked. Karen stood at the front of the room beside a man in a utility company uniform and a police officer. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Karen began, her voice steady but her eyes flinty. I called this emergency meeting because we have a serious situation in our community. Someone has been tampering with our electrical infrastructure. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Eleanor kept her face carefully blank as Karen continued. Officer Barrett and Mr. Simmons from City Power are here to address the legal and safety implications. But first, I want to make something perfectly clear. Karen scanned the room, her gaze eventually settling on Eleanor. We have reason to believe this tampering was deliberate and targeted. The board is offering a $500 reward for information leading to the identification of the responsible party. Eleanor met Karen's stare evenly. This wasn't just about a fried Tesla anymore. This was war, and Karen had just brought reinforcements. Officer Barrett stepped forward, a stocky man with a buzz cut and the weary expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Folks, tampering with electrical equipment isn't just an HOA violation, it's a crime. Depending on the circumstances, we could be looking at criminal mischief, property damage, or even reckless endangerment. Eleanor felt the weight of several gazes upon her. As the neighborhood's only known electrical engineer, she was the obvious suspect. She kept her expression neutral, reminding herself that suspicion wasn't evidence. The modified circuit had been removed, and there was nothing connecting her to Karen's damaged Tesla except circumstantial coincidence. Mr. Simmons from City Power cleared his throat. We'll be conducting safety inspections of the neighborhood's external outlets over the next few days. This is voluntary, but we strongly encourage compliance for everyone's safety. Voluntary. Eleanor's tension eased slightly. They couldn't force inspections without warrants, and they certainly wouldn't get those based on Karen's suspicions alone. I have a question, came a voice from the back. It was Raj Patel, a retired attorney who'd moved in last year. What exactly was the nature of the tampering, and how was it discovered? Karen shifted uncomfortably. The vehicle was damaged while charging. Your Tesla? Raj interrupted. Yes, Karen admitted, her jaw tightening. My car's electrical system was damaged by what the technician described as a power surge possibly caused by modified circuitry. And where exactly was your car charging when this occurred? Raj pressed, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. The room fell silent. Karen's nostrils flared slightly. At my home, of course. Interesting, Raj said mildly. Because my security camera shows your Tesla parked in front of Mark Peterson's house at 5:43 a.m. today with what appears to be a charging cable running to his exterior outlet. Gasps and murmurs fill the room. Karen's face flushed deep red. That's, I was. Stealing electricity? Eleanor suggested, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent room. Karen's eyes flashed dangerously. I had permission. Mark stood up. No, Karen, you absolutely did not have my permission. I have the footage downloaded if the officer would like to see it, Raj offered, holding up his phone. My camera has excellent night vision. I installed it after my garden gnomes kept mysteriously disappearing. He glanced pointedly at Karen. Officer Barrett looked increasingly uncomfortable. Ma'am, if you were using someone else's utilities without permission. This is ridiculous, Karen snapped. We're getting completely off topic. Someone deliberately tampered with electrical equipment and caused thousands of dollars in damage to my property. Allegedly, Raj corrected, and perhaps we should discuss motive. If someone did modify that outlet, and I'm not saying anyone did, it would appear they were attempting to protect their property from unauthorized use. Eleanor watched as the community dynamic shifted before her eyes. Karen's carefully constructed image as the neighborhood's righteous defender was crumbling. People were whispering, some openly staring at Karen with newfound suspicion. Sandra Chen, who'd received 3 citations for her excessive holiday decorations last December, raised her hand. I move that we audit the HOA books. Immediately. Seconded, called out at least 5 voices simultaneously. You can't just, Karen began. Article 7, Section 3 of the bylaws, Sandra interrupted, holding up her phone where the document was displayed. Members may call for a financial audit with a simple majority vote. Karen's gaze darted around the room, calculating. Eleanor could almost see her running the numbers in her head, realizing she was outnumbered. Fine, Karen said icily. We have nothing to hide. But this doesn't change the fact that someone tampered with electrical equipment, and that person needs to be held accountable. Officer Barrett cleared his throat. Actually, ma'am, given what I'm hearing, we should probably discuss the matter of you using utilities without permission. That's theft of services, which is also a crime. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, Eleanor caught Mark's eye across the room. He gave her a subtle thumbs up. The Tesla had cost Karen $12,000 to repair, but the truth was going to cost her something far more valuable. Her power. The emergency meeting adjourned in disarray, with Karen stalking out of the community center, her usual composure shattered. As residents spilled into the parking lot, breaking into animated discussion groups, Eleanor found herself surrounded by neighbors who'd received citations for everything from excessive wind chime usage to non-regulation mailbox colors. Did you really rig that outlet? Whispered Tammy Rodriguez, whose application to install solar panels had been rejected 3 times by Karen's architectural committee. Eleanor just smiled enigmatically. I have no idea what happened to Karen's car, but I do know that karma has a way of balancing the books. The next morning, Eleanor woke to a neighborhood in transformation. Karen's iron grip had been loosening for mere hours, and already the changes were visible. The Hendersons, who'd been fighting for permission to install a basketball hoop for their kids, had simply put one up overnight. Mrs. Finkelstein's previously unauthorized garden gnome collection had expanded to include 3 new figurines. Someone had hung a rainbow flag that definitely exceeded the maximum allowable decorative banner dimensions. Eleanor was enjoying her coffee on the front porch, savoring the small rebellions blooming across Sunnyside Estates, when a sleek black Mercedes pulled into Karen's driveway. A man in an expensive suit emerged carrying a briefcase. Eleanor recognized him as Gregory Welsh, the attorney who represented the HOA. 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed with a text from Sandra Chen. Karen just resigned as president. Greg Welsh is calling emergency board election for next week. Eleanor's eyebrows shot up. She hadn't expected Karen to surrender her position so quickly. Something else must have happened. The answer came that afternoon when Eleanor ran into Raj Patel while walking her dog. Quite the development with our former HOA president, Raj commented, falling into step beside her. Indeed, Eleanor replied. Seems sudden, though. I expected her to fight harder. Raj's eyes twinkled. Let's just say the financial audit already turned up some. Creative accounting. Karen has been reimbursing herself for official HOA vehicle charging for months, nearly $900 worth of electricity charged to the association account. Let me guess, Eleanor said, for charging her Tesla. The very same, Raj confirmed, and there are some questionable landscaping expenses that coincidentally match renovations done at her personal residence. Welsh advised her that resignation was her best option to avoid potential criminal charges. Eleanor processed this information, so she wasn't just stealing from Mark. She was stealing from all of us, Raj finished. Classic Karen, making rules for everyone else while exempting herself. They walked in comfortable silence for a moment before Raj spoke again. By the way, I never asked how you knew she was charging her car at Mark's house. The security camera footage was a stroke of luck on my part, but you seem to already know. Eleanor considered her words carefully. Let's just say I've been paying attention. Mark's an elderly widower living on a fixed income. When his electric bill suddenly jumped by nearly $100 a month, I started watching more closely. And the electrical tampering? Raj asked casually. Eleanor met his gaze directly. I have no knowledge of any tampering. But hypothetically, if someone wanted to discourage unauthorized use of an outlet, they might install a device that trips when subjected to unusual power draws. Like, say, an electric vehicle charger. Purely as a safety measure, of course. Of course, Raj agreed, is expression neutral. Hypothetically, such a device would be quite sophisticated. One might need engineering expertise to create it. One might, Eleanor acknowledged. Hypothetically. Raj nodded thoughtfully. Well, hypothetically or not, many people in this neighborhood are grateful. There's talk of nominating you for the HOA board in the special election next week. Eleanor stopped walking, genuinely surprised. Me? I have no interest in HOA politics. Perhaps that's precisely why you should consider it, Raj suggested. The best leaders are often those who don't seek power for its own sake. As they parted ways, Eleanor mulled over the unexpected turn of events. She wanted justice for Karen's hypocritical behavior, but she hadn't anticipated becoming part of the neighborhood's governance. The thought was simultaneously appealing and terrifying. When she reached her house, Eleanor noticed a small package on her doorstep. It contained a garden gnome wearing tiny wire-rimmed glasses and holding a miniature circuit board. The attached note simply read, "From your appreciative neighbors." Over the next few days, Sunnyside Estates buzzed with unprecedented community energy. Neighbors who had previously avoided eye contact now chatted freely across driveways. The text thread, originally created to warn about Karen's citation sprees, transformed into a forum for sharing improvement ideas. Someone suggested a community garden in the unused corner lot. Another proposed regular food truck nights in the cul-de-sac. Eleanor observed it all with a mixture of satisfaction and wariness. Change was coming rapidly to their little suburban kingdom, but she knew all too well how quickly good intentions could calcify into rigid rules. On Wednesday afternoon, Eleanor was reviewing resumes at her home office when her doorbell rang. She opened the door to find Karen Westfield standing on her porch. The woman looked different somehow, her hair slightly less perfect, her posture less commanding. The crisp designer outfit had been replaced by simple jeans and a blouse. Eleanor, Karen said, her voice tightly controlled. May I speak with you for a moment? Every instinct told Eleanor to slam the door, but curiosity won out. She stepped aside. Come in. Karen perched awkwardly on the edge of Eleanor's sofa, declining offers of tea or water. For several uncomfortable moments, she simply stared at her perfectly manicured nails. I know it was you, she finally said, looking up to meet Eleanor's gaze directly. With the outlet. Eleanor neither confirmed nor denied it. Why are you here, Karen? Karen's jaw worked as though she was physically struggling to form the words. I want to apologize. Of all the scenarios Eleanor had imagined for this confrontation, an apology hadn't featured in any of them. She raised an eyebrow, waiting. I shouldn't have been using Mark's electricity without permission, Karen continued, or misappropriating HOA funds. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. The apology sounded rehearsed, as though Karen had practiced it multiple times in front of a mirror. Nevertheless, it seemed genuine, or as genuine as Karen was capable of being. "Why did you do it?" Eleanor asked. "You can clearly afford to charge your Tesla at home, and your financial situation doesn't exactly scream desperate for cash." Karen's shoulders slumped slightly. It wasn't about the money. Not really. Then what? Control, Karen admitted, the word coming out in a rush. Power. The feeling that I could do whatever I wanted because I made the rules. She shook her head. "It sounds terrible saying it out loud." "It sounds honest," Eleanor replied. Karen twisted her wedding ring nervously. "My husband left me 6 months ago. Did you know that? He said living with me was like being constantly evaluated for compliance." Her laugh was brittle. He wasn't wrong. Eleanor felt an unexpected flicker of sympathy. "I'm sorry about your marriage." The HOA was the one place where everything made sense, Karen continued. Rules, orders, structure. Black and white. If people just followed the regulations, everything would be perfect. Her voice hardened. "But now my reputation is ruined, my car repair wiped out my savings, and I'm facing potential legal issues." The sympathy Eleanor had been feeling evaporated. This wasn't genuine remorse, it was self-pity. "Karen," Eleanor said evenly, "you're not facing consequences because you enforced rules. You're facing consequences because you held everyone to standards you exempted yourself from. That's not leadership. It's hypocrisy." Karen flinched as though she'd been slapped. "I suppose I deserve that. What do you want from me?" Eleanor asked directly. Karen straightened her spine, her composure partially returning. "I heard you're being nominated for the board. I want you to use your influence to convince people not to pursue legal action against me. I've already resigned and paid back the HOA funds. Isn't that enough?" And there was the real reason for this visit. Not apologizing, but negotiating. "That's not my decision," Eleanor said. "The community will vote on how to proceed, and I haven't even decided if I'm running for the board." Karen stood, smoothing her jeans with practiced precision. "Well, I hope you do run, and I hope you remember that everyone makes mistakes." She moved toward the door, then paused. "By the way, I've been meaning to ask, how did you know it was me taking the electricity? No one else noticed for months."